with eyes wide open. You know, especially as believers today, I think now more than ever, we need to keep our eyes wide open to see what's going on around us, to be aware of what's going on around us, and to be able to correct things that are around us. You know, back when I was in college, way back then, back in the last century it was, but way back then, I remember when I was studying psychology, I was listening to some of the different theories and the sociologists and all the others, and I'd come up with an axiom that I still think applies today. We become a function of our environment. I mean, what surrounds us all the time, the things, the music we listen to, the TV we watch, the people we hang out with, have impact on us, and little by little can lead us in a particular direction. We become a function of what's around us, and it's not that it's a conscious process, it's more of those unconscious type processes. And I remember while I was doing my study, the actual researchers were coming up with these different things. And one of them was called subliminal seduction. Now, if you've ever studied psychology, what they do is they put subliminal messages into things like movies and TV. They use these messages as ways to influence the viewers. And so the original experiments were in a movie, and they had these things that you really couldn't see because it flashed through so quickly, but it basically said, buy Coca-Cola. And at the intermission, everybody was buying Coca-Cola. And they began to expand their research to the point where they came to realize that if they have a steady stream of a particular message, people will buy into it. And it's so obvious today. I mean, you turn on just about any news channel and they're all using the same exact language. They're not even hiding it anymore. They're all saying the same stream of information and the same wording and the same things, and they repeat them over and over again. I remember back when I was a child, my mother used to use this expression all the time. I'm beginning to sound like a broken record. Yeah, see, the older folks get that one. The younger folks don't get that. They don't have records anymore. You know, the old records where there was vinyl, where if it had a scratch or a crack in it, when the needle got to it, it would start to skip and say the same thing over and over again. And I today can appreciate why my mother would say that, because she said the same things to me as I was growing up, again and again and again. And probably it wasn't like, you know, in her mind of saying, you know, by repeating myself over and over again, he's eventually going to get it. But I did eventually get it. So things that she was trying to cultivate in me, things that she wanted to see in me, qualities that she wanted me to have, were the things that she would constantly be repeating. And I have to admit, we're all like that. When we hear the same things over and over again, it becomes part of our own lexicon. We just can't not repeat it, to the point sometimes where we buy into it. Now, with eyes wide open, Jesus' parable today, the only one he explains, is a very, very powerful image of what we're dealing with in our lives. And I think it's been every generation, but more so today because of modern communications and the way the modern society is. They have people in Hollywood who are psychologists who are advising script writers about things that they can put into their scripts to get people to use contraception and to practice what they call safer sex. I actually read books when I was doing my dissertation where they admit what they're doing. They're not even hiding it. And the purpose for doing it was to get rid of the old Western Christian values. I kid you not, they use those exact phrases. The woman's name is Jane Brown. If you want to check her out, she was in the Midwest someplace. They're doing these things to try to change people's thinking about human sexuality. And they're doing it overtly now. They're not even being clandestine anymore. They're doing it by putting these little things in popular TV shows that show their way, but no other way. And so the church has had to admit that, yes, human sexuality is an important thing. But it's so important to us that we don't take it casually. We actually take it for the beautiful thing that it is. But unfortunately, the weeds are sown all around us. And these people are doing all in their power to make sure that those weeds take root in our culture. To the point now where I've used an expression, they have successfully separated procreation from sex. Ask most people today what they think the purpose of sex is, they'll tell you pleasure, which is what they want you to think. But make no mistake, from the very beginning, when God made them male and female, he said, be fruitful and multiply. That's why I'm giving you this gift of sexuality. Today we begin this beautiful thing called NFP Awareness Week, Natural Family Planning Awareness Week. This has been going since 2001, where the bishops of our country have asked that this particular week, which centers on the week, the anniversary in which St. Paul VI had released the document Humanae Vitae. Humanae Vitae was a phenomenal document. It's very short, it's a very brief one. If you've never read it, I encourage you, go read it. It created a bit of a firestorm in the 70s because so many people thought that the church was finally going to get on board and get onto the contraception thing and get onto all of these things and, and liberate women. NFP awareness is what actually liberates women. Natural family planning is so liberating. First off, it's a comprehensive approach to human sexuality. It's not just a one thing and fix it. No, it's comprehensive. It looks at the entire person. It looks at the entire person of the man and the woman. It looks at the entire person and asks us to do things according to the law of God. And so, in the law of God, well, what was God doing when he created man and woman? What is God thinking when he wanted us to be human beings and to reproduce? He wanted us to be procreators with him. And that's the gift. That's the beauty of what we have today. Unfortunately, because the weeds are choking off some of the wheat, people have a hard time seeing the truth and recognizing God in our midst, recognizing what God has done and what God has created. And so this week in particular, I'm going to ask you to try to understand a little bit better what the church is saying about natural family planning. There's tons and tons of resources out there. There's one by a guy named Jason Everett. Jason Everett is a phenomenal Catholic speaker. Anything from him you'll enjoy. He's very on target. He did this one podcast many, many years ago that's now available on Formed. And it's called Green Sex, the Case for Natural Family Planning. And I think he did a great job in it. I think he presents the thing. It's over an hour long, so he can do a lot more in that podcast than I could do in a few minutes in a homily. But I encourage you, get your subscription to Formed. It's all in the bulletin if you haven't got it, how to get the parish subscription. Look up this particular podcast and listen to it. There's so many good things out there. There's another great speaker. He started this thing called the Theology of the Body Institute. His name is Christopher West, another good speaker on this topic. But try to, for just a second, suspend the noise that you've been hearing all these years, this rhetoric that's out there that's been filling our brains with this whole thing of lies and deception. Because if it's the evil one who spreads the weeds, it's going to be with lies and deception. And he is surrounding us. He's pounding us with messages that go against the beauty of God's gift, that goes against the beauty of what God asks of us. And make no mistake about it, Jesus just made it clear. Just like last week, it's not a static thing, these weeds and wheat. The purpose of the weeds, the devil's deceptions, is to get us to go from the wheat to the weeds, to pull us out so that we can't thrive and become one of his minions. That's his goal. And the end of that, as you heard, will be a fiery wailing of teeth kind of thing. We don't want that. And so seeing the truth, peering with eyes wide open, looking into the reality as God ordained it and what God created is what's liberating. When I'm a child of God, very clear, Jesus said, we are the children of God. We are the children of the kingdom. That's liberating. That's freedom. Living in the freedom of the children of God. Living with the devil, living the lie, that's slavery. That's enslavement. He wants to enslave us to our passions. He wants to enslave us to this world. He wants us to be bound up like he is for all eternity. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, today we have that great opportunity to once again accept the gift that God has given us, to understand fully revelation as God has revealed it. Learn a little bit more, if you can, about what the church teaches on human sexuality. We're not out of touch. I'll tell you right now, I did a whole dissertation on Pope John Paul II's Theology of the Body. Theology of the Body was a phenomenal gift that Pope John Paul II gave when he first became Pope. It's an undiscovered reality because most people don't know about it. But he gave us this beautiful thing of showing first what God intended and then asking us to live as God intended. And it's a beautiful thing. I couldn't do it. He was 129 presentations at his Wednesday audiences, so I couldn't summarize it all right now if I wanted. But suffice it to say, the church is not out of touch. In fact, the church sees the human person as fully dignified, sees human sexuality as a gift and beautiful, and wants human sexuality to be used according to God's plan, in the way that God wanted. And once we get that right, our lives are so free, our lives are so filled with beauty, that yes, all of a sudden we can have that joy of knowing that we're children of God, of living as children of God. And so I encourage you all, with eyes wide open, look around you and see what you see. And are you seeing the reality that God has ordained, or are you seeing the weeds that the devil is sowing? But in either case, we always have to make sure that we can turn our eyes once again where they belong, and that is on the truth as ordained and established by God. And so we'll continue next week and the week after with the same message, because it's such an important message. Next week we get 3 more parables. Maybe take a look at them and pray over them this week. And then the week after that, the feeding of the 5,000. And so with those, we're going to expand our vision because God is so lavish, so generous in sowing his seeds, his grace in this world, and he's pouring it upon you and upon me. Why? Because he loves us and wants them for himself. God bless you.